Good evening, children.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, children. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, children. Good evening. So on the screen, you can see the empirical or the experimental relation between the three measures of central tendency. Am I audible, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you can see the experimental or the empirical relationship between the three measures of central tendency. We know that mean, median, and mode. Mean, median, and mode are the three measures of central tendency. And this is the relationship between them. This is the relationship between them. Mode is equal to, that is the value of mode is equal to 3 times the value of median minus twice the value of mean. So when do we use this relation? Supposing you're given the value of mean and the value of mode, you can substitute that in this relation to find the value of the median. I said, if you're given the value of mean and the value of mode, you can substitute those values in this relation and find the value of the median. So in general, given, since there are three quantities here, given the values of any two, you can find the third one. You can find the value of the third one. So when you're given median and mode, you can find, when you're given median and mean, you can find mode. When you're given the values of mode and median, you can find mean. So like that, given the values of any two. So it's given, say that the median of a particular distribution is 20 and the mean of the same distribution is 15. Say, for example, okay, the median of a particular distribution is 20 and the mean of the same distribution is 15. Find the mode of the same distribution. Find the mode. So you can just use this relation to find the value of mode. All right. So we have some properties of arithmetic mean, children. We have some properties of arithmetic mean. See the first property. If x bar, normally we use small x and we place a bar over it to represent arithmetic mean. In some books, you can also see a capital X. So mostly it is small x and a bar on it. But again, you will find books with capital X and a bar on it. So both stand for or both represent arithmetic mean. So if x bar is the mean, if x bar is the mean of n observations, what are the observations? X1, X2, X3, X4, so on till Xn, because n observations. If there are 10 observations, then X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, X6, X7, X8, X9, X10. If there are 10 observations, then the last one is X10. If there are 20 observations, the last one is X20. So when there are n observations, the last one is Xn. So there are n observations, x1, x2, x3, x4, x5 till xn. So if n is 15, the last one is x15. If n is 15, the last one is x15. And x bar is the mean of these n observations. X bar is the mean of these n observations. Well, we need to prove that. sigma xi minus x bar, where I ranges from 1 to n. We need to prove that sigma xi minus x bar, where I ranges from 1 to n, is 0. We need to prove that this sum is 0. The sum of the xi minus x bar column. Sigma means summation. Sigma means summation, the total of some particular column. The total of some particular column. So the total of which column? Xi minus x bar column. Xi minus x bar column. The total of the xi minus x bar column you must prove is 0. Let's read again. If x bar is the mean of n observations, so the observations are x1, x2, x3, so on till xn. These are the observations. How many observations? N observations. What is the mean of all these n observations? X bar. What should we prove? Given this, what should we prove? We must prove that the total of the xi minus x bar column. You need to generate this xi minus x bar column. Xi minus x bar column. The total of this column you must prove is 0. Xi minus x bar. The total of this column you must prove is 0. Now this xi minus x bar represents the, or in fact the, okay, let me tell you like this. Xi minus x bar is the deviations, represents the deviations from mean. The deviation from mean. You will understand better. Just listen now. So deviations from mean, and sigma xi minus x bar represents the algebraic sum of the deviations from mean. Because the algebraic is algebraic sum. Simply sum, algebraic sum. So the sigma is the sum, sigma sum. Deviations from mean. See your xi minus x bar. When you calculate xi minus x bar, you're calculating the deviations from mean. The deviations from mean. The sum of the deviations from mean. The algebraic sum of the deviations from mean. We must prove is 0. Now you don't have, we only have to understand the properties. We don't have the proofs in our syllabus. If at all it is done in any of your schools, just let me know, because I don't want to burden you with the proofs. That's what it is. I can do it in the class. So, but this is not needed. The proof is not needed. Though I have the proof here, the proof is not needed. Just in case your teachers do this at school, kindly bring it to my notice. I will do it in the class. But I'm pretty sure it is not needed. But the properties are useful to handle MCQs. The properties are useful to handle MCQs. So what I have done is I have taken a numerical case. Instead of explaining the proof, I've taken a numerical one like this. So I'll explain what it means with the help of this numerical version. So children, so let's try to understand this property. Let's try to understand this property with the help of these numbers. So consider the numbers 105, 216. Don't see the next column. Please just look at what I'm reading for you. Yeah. So consider the numbers 105, 216, 322, 167, 273, 405, and 346. Consider these numbers. So there are 7 numbers. What does that mean? What does that mean? The sum of all those 7 numbers divided by 7. Is that mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So x bar is equal to, they total to 1834 divided by 7. So x bar is equal to 262. X bar is 262. So their arithmetic mean is 262. Now, how many values, the xi values we have? We have 7. X1 is 105, X2 is 216, X3 is 322, X4 is 167, X5 is 273, X6 is 405, and X7 is 346. So here we have 7 values. So 7 observations. That is that Xn is X7 here. n is equal to 7. Xn is x7 here. I'm just trying to make you understand what that n. So here xn is x7. Okay, so we have x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6, x7. And the mean of these 7 observations is 262. Now we need to find how far each value is located from the actual mean. Now we have 105 as one value. How far is it from 262? That is, what is the deviation of the values from the arithmetic mean? Deviations meaning how far it is located, how far or how close it is located. How far or how close depends on the difference. It depends on the difference. 105 is the first value. 105 minus 262 is the deviation of x1 from the mean 262. X2 is 216. X2 is 216. 216 minus 262 is the deviation of x2 from mean. From mean. How far or how close it is to mean. So this is how we find the deviations. Deviations basically is the distance between the values and the mean of the data. Okay, so 105 x1 minus x bar, x1 minus x bar, x2 minus x bar, 322 minus 262, 167 minus 262, 273 minus 262, 405 minus 262, 346 minus 262. Will give you the deviations of these 7 values from their mean. Will give you the deviations of these 7 values from their mean. So that's what you can see in the table here. It is always xi minus x bar, not the other way around. The deviation is positive, negative. It's always xi, excuse me, it's always xi minus x bar. Okay, so you can see here. So let's find the deviations of the xi values from their mean. So these are the xi values, and we have this new column, xi minus x bar, deviation from mean. Xi minus x bar. So the first value is 105. 105 minus 262, minus 157. 216. 216 minus 262. The deviation from mean, the deviation of this value from mean, like this. So you. So I hope you understand all this. Yeah, now this is that new column. This is that new column. What is the column heading? Xi minus x bar. Why is it called xi minus x bar? Because this is x1, this is x2, this is x3, this is x4, this is x5, this is x6, and this is x7. So in general, we say xi. In general, we say xi. So xi. And what are these? 262, 262, 262, 262. X bar. This is x bar. So the column heading is xi minus x bar. Xi minus x bar. Then when you find the total of these values are in the column xi minus x bar. And when you find the total of these values, minus 157, minus 46, plus 60, minus 95, plus 11, plus 143, plus 84. When you find the, the sum of these values, it represents sigma. It represents sigma xi minus x bar, because total of the xi minus x bar column, and it will always be 0. So I've intentionally not written I ranges from 1 to n, because this also is enough. This also is sufficient. Sigma, this also sometimes it's, this itself is sufficient. So otherwise here I ranges from 1 to 7. If you have to be very specific, here it will be I ranges from 1 to 7. not 1 to n, because we know there are 7 values. We know n is 7. So it will be I ranges from I is equal to 1 and here 7 you must write. Even if you don't write that and just use sigma, that is also sufficient because we are not specializing in statistics. So yeah, okay, let me stop there. So this is fine. This is acceptable. For students of grade 9, this is acceptable. Sigma is enough. So yeah, if at all you want it to be, you know, like complete, then it just I is equal to 1 to 7 here. Because we say I is equal to 1 to n when you don't know the last one. Here we know the last one is 7. So I is equal to 1 and 7 here. Again, I'm telling you, you don't have to be so formal. The sigma itself is sufficient. So now I hope you understood the meaning of the sigma xi minus x bar. The total of this column will always be 0, not only for this, not for only these numbers. Not for any data like this. So you can just take some vague values and find their mean. If their mean is a terminating decimal, fine. But make sure it's a whole number so that you don't struggle to understand. I have taken out, it works always. It's always true. But you know, when the mean is a non-terminating, non-repeating decimal or a non-terminating repeating decimal, yeah, see, you will not get exactly 0, maybe like very close to 0. So we can understand this when the value of mean is a whole number. So this is what it is. So we here in this example, we have taken 7 numbers whose mean is 262. And we found the deviations of every value, every xi value from the arithmetic mean. And that column is called xi minus x bar, xi minus x bar. All the xi values minus x bar. So we have some new values. The total of them represents sigma xi minus x bar, because this column is called xi minus x bar. So the total of these, when you add all these values, it's called sigma xi minus x bar, which will always be 0. So the conclusion is this. So we see that the algebraic sum of the deviations, algebraic sum is the total. Algebraic sum meaning the total of the deviations from mean. The deviations from mean is 0, will always be 0. So that's the property. That is the property, and that's what is given here. If x bar is the mean of n observations, x1, x2, x3, and so on till xn, then prove that sigma xi minus x bar, the deviations of the total of the deviations from mean is 0. That is the algebraic sum total, or the algebraic sum of the deviations from mean. These are the deviations. Just in case you're not getting the terms, these are the deviations. These are the deviations. These are the deviations. These numbers represent the deviations. Minus 157, minus 46, 60. These are the deviations. These are the deviations. So we need to prove that the algebraic sum, the total of the deviations from mean, is 0. Because these deviations, you can find from any number, not only the mean. You can just take some number like 200 and find the deviations of, you can find the deviations from 200. So you're finding the deviations from what? From the mean. That is what is specified here. The algebraic sum of the deviations from mean is 0. From mean only will be 0. So if you find the algebraic sum of the deviations from some other value other than mean, it will not be 0. Now the mean is 262, right? So even if you take 260, the total will not be 0. It will be something else, but not 0. Only when you take the deviations from the mean, the total will be 0. So that is one important property of mean. And you just remember the property. You don't have to, I don't think they'll ask you to list the properties also. So you just understand the property. I think that should be sufficient for 9th standard. I don't think you need to learn to say this or learn to write this. Just remember what, what it implies, and that's enough. So I think children, instead of taking a screenshot of the entire thing, just take a screenshot of the property. This much only I can hide. Yeah, property 1, please take a picture of this. Is it done? Children, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, children. Okay. If x bar, property 2, if x bar is the mean of n observations, x1, x2, x3, x4, xn, then the mean of the observations x1 plus a, comma, x2 plus a, comma, x3 plus a, comma, x4 plus a, so on up to xn plus a. So what's happening? To every value, a is added. x1 plus a. The observations, the original observations are x1, x2, x3, x4 till xn. But what's happening here? To every observation, they're adding a. A is added to every observation. x1 plus a. Come see the comma, children. The comma is out here. x1 plus a, x2 plus a, x3 plus a, x4 plus a. Goes on like that till xn plus a. So if the mean of these observations is x bar, then the mean of these observations would be x bar plus a. If the mean of these observations, x1, x2, x3, x4, x5 till xn, if the mean of these observations is x bar, and if a is added to every xi value, if a is added to every xi value, then the mean is also increased by a. The mean is also increased by a. You're increasing every value by a. Then the mean is also increased by a. These are the original values. There are n observations. These are the original observations. And the mean of these observations is x bar. When you increase each of these observations by some constant a, by any value a, if you increase each of these observations by some constant a, then the mean is also increased by a. The mean is also increased by a. That's what is given here. If x bar is the mean of n observations, x1, x2, x3 till xn, then the mean of the observations x1 plus a, comma, x2 plus a, so on till xn plus a. The mean of these observations will be x bar plus a. That is, if each observation is increased by a, then the mean is also increased by a. So say the mean of a particular data is 20. Say there are some 10 values, okay? There are some 10 values, and their mean is 20. Their mean is 20. Now what you do to each of the 10 values, you add 1. You add 1 or you add 0.5. Okay, you add 0.5 to every value. There are 10 values, no? To every value, you add 0.5. So you get new values now. You get new values now. There are 10 values. What the values are, we don't have to worry about that. There are 10 values and their mean is 20. Now what you do, you increase every value by 0.5. And if you're asked to find the mean, if you have to find the mean of the new set of values, you don't have to again add all the 10 values. You have 10 new values now. You've increased each of them by 0.5. So you have 10 new values now. If it was 19, now it is 19.5. If it was 21, now it is 21.5. If it was 3, it is now 3.5. So everything has changed. So how will you find the mean? You'll have to again add all the 10 values and divide by 10. No, but you don't have to do that, because by the property, the original mean was 20. Now what you've done, you've increased every value by 0.5. So the mean is also increased by 0.5. So the new mean is 20.5. That's all. This is useful when, when the data is very large. Now say there are some 2000 values. There are some 2000 values. Okay, for example, say the mean of in class 9, say there are some J sections, okay, 10 sections. There are sections from A to J. And the mean marks in maths of class 9 was found. So there are so many students, because there are sections from A to J, 10 sections. So many students, and the mean marks in maths was calculated. Okay, say it is 80. Class 9, 10 sections. So many students. The mean marks in mathematics was calculated. And it was found to be 80. Then what happens? The teacher finds out that in the paper, one particular question, the question was incorrect. The question itself was incorrect. So she had to award 1 mark for every student. The question itself was incorrect, and that question carried 1 mark. So the teacher had to award 1 mark for that answer to all the students of class 9. Naturally, their marks in each of their marks in maths will increase by 1. If that student had got 99, now it will be 100. If the student had got 50, it will be now 51. Now the teacher had spent so much time to calculate the mean marks of class 9. And she found it to be 80. Now she has to recalculate. Everyone has got 1 mark more because the question was incorrect. Some students spotted out that one particular question was incorrect. So the teacher had to give marks, had to give 1 mark to all the students. So now everyone's marks increase by 1. So in such a situation, the find the new mean. The new mean will also increase by 1. Originally it was 80. Now everybody's got 1 mark more. So the new mean will be whatever was the original mean, 80 plus 1, 81. 81 is the new mean. So when the data is large, this property becomes very useful. So this is property 2. Again, the proof is not important. Yeah. If x bar is the mean of x1, x2, x3, x4 till xn, then the mean of ax1, ax2, ax3, every value is multiplied by a. then the mean of ax1, ax2, ax3, so on till axn will be ax bar, where a is any number different from 0. Yeah, you cannot multiply the values by 0, then everybody, every value will become 0. So you know that. So you should not multiply by 0. Again, you cannot divide by 0 also because division by 0 is not defined. So when you're multiplying, don't multiply by 0, something other than 0. So that means if each observation is multiplied by a non-zero number a, then the mean is also multiplied by a. That's the property. So original values are x1, x2, x3 till xn. Their mean is x bar. Okay. Now every observation is multiplied by a. A is not 0. It's multiplied by a. Every observation is multiplied by a. ax1, ax2, a into x1, a into x2. Every observation is multiplied by a. So what will be the new mean? The new mean will be the original mean x bar multiplied by a. So supposing the original mean was 20 and every value is multiplied by 3. Every value in the data is multiplied by 3. Then the new mean will be the original mean 20 into 3, 60. Take a picture, children. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this one holds good for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So now you saw addition and multiplication. Now here is division. So if x bar is the mean of n observations, x1, x2, x3 till xn. If x bar is the mean of these n observations, then the mean of x1 by a, comma, x2 by a, comma, x3 by a, so on up to xn by a. That is when every value is divided by a, the new mean is also divided by a. That is, the new mean will be the original mean divided by a, where a is any non-zero number, because division by 0 is not defined. You can divide by any value other than 0. So that is, if each observation is divided by a non-zero number, then their mean is also divided by 8. Take a picture, children. Is it over, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And one more thing is mean cannot be represented graphically. Arithmetic mean does not have a graphical representation. Arithmetic mean does not have a graphical representation. Now here the property is, if x bar is the mean of n observations, x1, x2, so on till xn, then the mean of x bar minus a, x1 minus a, comma, x2 minus a, comma, xn minus a is x bar minus a, where a is any real number. That means when every observation is reduced by a, when you reduce every observation by a, the mean is also reduced by a. Yes, children, take a picture because we've been doing similar properties. I'm not saying anything much for this. So it holds good for addition, subtraction,
Ma'am, can you
multiplication.
show the full?
Oh, okay. That's not going to be relevant. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So here it is. We'll just understand the question, the result. We don't want the solution. How the solution is, worked, that we don't need. The steps we don't need. If the mean of n observations, the n observations are ax1, ax2, ax3 till axn. So so it's very obvious that x1, x2, x3 till xn, the mean is x bar. Since every value is multiplied by a, their mean will be ax bar. Okay, so the mean of these observations is ax bar because x1, x2, x3 till xn, their mean will be x bar. That's a standard representation. That's x bar. Now you see that every value is multiplied by a. So the mean is also multiplied by a. So the mean of these observations is ax bar. Then you should show that. What is this, children? See here. What is happening here? Every value is subtracted by this mean. This the first value ax1 minus ax bar. Then what is here? Ax2 minus ax bar. Then here ax3 minus ax bar. So on till ax and minus ax bar. So this represents the algebraic sum of the deviations of these values from their mean. So obviously the total is 0. This represents, see, they're adding. This represents the algebraic sum of the deviations, the algebraic sum of the deviations of these values from their mean. The deviations of these values from their mean. The deviations of these values from their mean. That's what is here. See here, this is the first value minus the mean. This is second value minus mean. This is okay. Then there is the third value minus mean. Fourth value minus mean. Like that, the last value minus mean. So this is basically, and they're adding up everything. So this basically represents the algebraic sum, because addition, algebraic sum of the deviations of every value from their mean. So this total is always 0. That's what we saw in the example. This total is always 0. The algebraic sum of the deviations of every value from their mean is always 0. That is the first observation minus mean, second observation minus mean, third observation minus mean. Like that, last observation minus mean. When you add all these, the answer will always be 0. That's what we understood in this slide. The first property here. That's what we understood here. Similar, children. The mean of n observations, x1, x2, x3, till xn is x bar. The mean is x bar. If a minus b is added to each of the observations, then the new mean will be the original mean x bar plus a plus b, sorry, plus a minus b. Every value a minus b is added to every value. Then the new mean will be the original mean plus a minus b. Isn't it? Today it's raining outside and children want to enjoy the weather. So I have, forcibly put them in the classroom. Not in the mood today, I guess. Children, do we understand this?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So the mean of n observations x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6 till xn, the mean is given to be x bar. So if a minus b is added to each of these observations, then their new mean will be the original mean x bar plus a minus b. Add the same thing. Whatever you're adding, whatever action you're doing with the observations, do the same thing to the mean. That's all. You're adding a minus b to every value. Then you add the same thing to the original mean. So the new mean will be the original mean plus a minus b. So actually these the theory part, children, you can just read and understand. Just read it once and yeah. Take a picture of this. And this also.
Ma'am, can you show the previous slide?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. And I told you about the relationship between mean, median, and mode. Remember that? Mode is equal to 3 median minus 2 mean. Mode is equal to 3 median minus 2 mean. With this, we come to the end of the chapter, statistics. So we'll discuss some multiple choice questions in the next class. MCQs on statistics, we'll just see a few of them in the next class. All right, children, this is a new chapter, Heron's formula. Has anyone here learned this in school already?
Me, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Me sounded. Shreyas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you finished this in school, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Fine. So these things are familiar, children. Rectangle, you know how to find the area of a rectangle and perimeter of a rectangle. So you know this. Square. Yeah, this may be new to you. Half d square. Area of a square is also given by the formula half d square. Half square of the diagonal. Okay, just have a look at the slides. I will not explain anything because these are not new to you. Perimeter area. So nothing new about this. Area of a square, a square. Area is also half diagonal square. Half d square. So triangle, we know area of a right triangle is half base into height. Half base into height. And also perimeter will be the sum of the three sides. Perimeter of the triangle is equal to the sum of the three sides, AB plus BC plus AC. So this is an isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangle. AB and AC are the equal sides. And BC is the base. In an isosceles triangle, the altitude bisects the base. In an isosceles triangle, the altitude bisects the base. That is, it divides the base into two equal halves, which is why we have BD is equal to A by 2, CD is equal to A by 2. Half of A. ABC is an isosceles triangle. Sides AB and AC are equal, so you can see them. They are marked X. The base BC is called A. But you see that BD and CD are marked A by 2. That's because the altitude AD bisects the base, divides or cuts the base into two equal pieces. So A becomes A by 2, A by 2. So what will be the perimeter? Perimeter will be the sum of the three sides, AB plus BC plus AC. AB is X, BC is X, sorry, AB is X, AC is X, and BC is A. So X plus A. Simply AB plus AC plus BC, sum of the three sides. Area is half base into height. Area is given by the formula half base into height. So you can see half into base is A into the height, which is calculated using Pythagoras theorem. Into height, which is calculated using Pythagoras theorem. AD is equal to Pythagoras theorem, children. So AB square is equal to AD square plus BD square. Nothing, don't worry, we'll see it when we work numerical versions. If you okay, just in case you want to know what is the root of x square minus a square by 4 is the length of AD by Pythagoras theorem. AD is equal to square root of hypotenuse square, AB square minus BD square. You can maybe write it in your book as I'm saying. AD, okay, you may just write this. AB square is equal to AB square, or let's start like this, AD square. AD square plus BD square is equal to AB square. AD square plus BD square is equal to AB square. So we have AD square, next line, AD square plus A by 2 the whole square. A by 2 the whole square is equal to X square. So AD square plus A square by 4. A square by 4 is equal to X square. Next step, AD square is equal to X square minus A square by 4. So AD is equal to the square root of X square minus A square by 4. Simply by using Pythagoras theorem. Why we should find AD? Because AD is the height, AD is the altitude. Half base into height, half base BC, which is A, into height. Height is AD. Height we don't know. Okay, you will say, okay, just mark H and take it as H. Okay, fine. H, we can mark H and take it as H. Half into base A into height H. So in a numerical question, when you're not given AD, this is how we find AD. We find AD using Pythagoras theorem. AD square plus BD square is equal to AB square. Or you can even take AD square plus DC square is equal to AC square. Anything, any right triangle. There are two right triangles. You can take any one of them and apply Pythagoras theorem to find AD. Class, use the emoji. Raise your hands. Shreyas. Who's Brinda Saravanan?
Pratiksha, ma'am.
Pratiksha, okay. So Shreyas is there, Pratiksha, Nikita, Pranav, Tarun, Arav, Satvika, Vasudevan, Sangamitra, Hitesh, Kanishka, Deepika. Who's not there? Ananya is not there. Shivani is not there. Where is Shreyas? Oh yeah, he's there. I think, okay. All right, children. Thank you. Equilateral triangle, we know all the three sides are equal. Perimeter is again the sum of the three sides. A plus A plus A, 3A. Area is equal to root 3 by 4A square. Children, you know, I'm not explaining because you already know it. I'm just reading it for you from the slide. Perimeter of an equilateral triangle, yeah, A plus A plus A, 3A. All the three sides are equal. So if you call each of the sides A plus A plus A, 3A is the perimeter. Altitude is given by root 3 by 2A. Altitude AD is given by the formula root 3 by 2 into A. We have seen all this in standard 8. And the area is given by the formula root 3 by 4 into side square. How do you find this is the part? This is a rhombus, children. This is rhombus. By mistake, I should put it here. By mistake, it's here. So parallelogram here. Now this one, This one is when you regard AB, okay, area of a parallelogram is base into height. That's the first thing. Area of a parallelogram is base into height. Do we know that? Do we know that the area of a parallelogram
Yes,
is given by the formula base into height?
Yes.
All right. Area is equal to base into height. So, and in a parallelogram, opposite sides are equal. In a parallelogram, opposite sides are equal. Okay. So if you regard AB as the base, then MD is the altitude. Altitude falls from the opposite vertex to the base. Okay. So if you regard AB as the base, then DM is the altitude. If you regard BC as the base, if you take BC as the base, the altitude from A will fall on CB produced. If the angle is an acute angle, obtuse angle. Angle ABC is an obtuse angle. ABC is an obtuse angle. Then the altitude from the opposite vertex will fall on that side produced. It will fall outside the triangle. The altitude will be found outside the triangle. So it will fall on the side produced and outside the triangle. So you can see P2 from A. From the vertex A, you can see P2. From the vertex A, you can see P2. P2 is the altitude to the base BC, but it's not on BC, it's on BC produced. So altitudes may sometimes fall inside the triangle, outside the triangle also, depending on the angle. So in an obtuse triangle, one altitude will be formed outside the triangle. All right, so when you take in a parallelogram, opposite sides are equal. So the perimeter of a parallelogram is equal to the sum of all the four sides. But since opposite sides are equal, if you now here in this figure, they've called the sides L and C, they've marked it L and B. So it will be L plus L because opposite sides are equal, plus B plus B. L plus L because opposite sides are equal, plus B plus B. This is the perimeter. Perimeter is simply the sum of all the sides of the closed figure. Area is not half, sorry, the parallelogram. So base into height, base AB into height DM, or base BC. The altitude for this base or side BC falls outside the triangle on CB produced. So half, oh, I'm so sorry, parallelogram. So it's base BC into altitude AL. Don't worry, children. Just remember that sometimes the altitude to the base may fall outside the figure. Just remember that, that's enough. Sometimes the altitude to the base may fall outside the figure. So it will fall on the side produced. That much you remember, that's all. So parallelogram, base into height. Perimeter is the sum of all the four sides, and opposite sides are equal here. Yeah. And what's the formula to find the area for rhombus? This is a rhombus. What's the formula to find the area for rhombus? Formula to find the area for rhombus. So again, base into height. Okay, base into height, like a parallelogram, base into height. If the base and the height of the if the base and the height of the rhombus is given to you, if the base and the height of the rhombus is given to you, so the information will basically be like the base of the rhombus is something and its height is something, find its area. So then base into height. Sometimes the diagonals are given, the lengths of the diagonals are given to you. In that case, it will be half product of diagonals, half d1, d2, half d1, d2, half d1, d2. Area of a rhombus, when the diagonals are given, is half d1, d2, half product of diagonals. And in a rhombus, all the sides are equal. In a rhombus, all the sides are equal. So if you call the sides A, if you call each side A, then the perimeter of the rhombus will be A plus A plus A plus A, 4A. Like in a square, in a rhombus, all sides are equal. Like in a rectangle, in a parallelogram, only opposite sides are equal. A parallelogram, rectangle, you can relate a parallelogram with a rectangle, rhombus with a square. In the parallelogram, you can see that the sides are slanting. If you make them vertical, then it's a rectangle. If you see in the figure, in this parallelogram, these sides BC and AD, they're like slanting like this. If they're vertical, if they're completely vertical, it becomes a rectangle. It becomes a rectangle. In fact, a rectangle is a parallelogram in which one angle is a right angle. If any one angle in a parallelogram is a right angle, then the figure is a rectangle. That's the difference. In a parallelogram, you can see the lines, they're slanting like this. If they were vertical, completely vertical, then it's a rectangle. So rectangle and parallelogram, opposite sides are equal. In a rhombus and square, all sides are equal. Same thing here. In a rhombus, all the sides are equal. So just that AD and BC, they're slanting like this. If they were vertical like this, then it's a square. So like in a square, all the sides are equal. So the perimeter is equal to side plus side plus side plus side. Okay, 4 into side, or 4A. Don't read this one. Need not read this. Just look at this one alone. If D1 and D2 are the lengths of the diagonals of a rhombus of side A, then perimeter is equal to 4A. 4A, all the sides are equal, so 4A. And area is equal to half D1, D2. Area is also base into height, if base and height is given to you. So now we have discussed or we have seen we've seen how to find the area and perimeter of various figures, various plane figures. Now we're going to see a new formula, which is called the Heron's formula, which is useful to find the area of any triangle when you know the lengths of the three sides. Basically, in the formula to find the area of a triangle, we need the length of the altitude, because area of a triangle is equal to half base into height. Area of a triangle is equal to half base into height. You need the length of the altitude. Half base into height. You need to know one side and the altitude and the length of the altitude that falls on that side. So without the altitude, you cannot find area. If you have to find the area of a triangle, you need to know the length of a side and the length of the altitude that falls on that side. See here, half base into height. Half into base into height. Here the side itself becomes the height. Now supposing you know AC. You don't know BC or AB. You only know AC. Then half into base AC into height. The height will fall from the opposite vertex B. The height will fall from the opposite vertex B. You need to know this altitude. If supposing you know only the side AC, you know the length of the side AC, then area of this triangle is half base into height. Half into base AC, half into base AC. Base can be any one of the three sides. Base can be any one of the three sides. Base need not be the side on which the triangle stands. The triangle stands on the side AB. So that doesn't mean that the base is AB. The triangle stands on the base BC. This triangle stands on the base BC. That doesn't mean that, oh my God, 1 minute, I'm not focusing, sorry. Okay, this triangle stands on the side BC, which is called the base. So just because it stands on the side BC, BC alone is not the base. Any side of the triangle can be regarded as the base. Any side, AB can be taken as the base. AC can be taken as the base. BC can be taken as the base. Provided when you use the formula half base into height, you will have to take the corresponding altitude. If you take BC as the base, then AB is the altitude. If you take AB as the base, then BC is the altitude. This one is the altitude. If you take AC as the base, then the altitude will fall from B. You need to know the length of the altitude from B on AC. Length of the altitude from B on AC. Okay. So here also see half base into height. Half base BC is the base and height AD. In the case of an equilateral triangle alone, only with the length of the side you can find the area, √3/4 side square. In the case of an equilateral triangle, you can find the area just using the side, because all the sides are equal. √3/4 into side square will give you the area. Otherwise, you need the altitude. So here we have a formula which will help us to find the area of a triangle just using the length of the sides. You don't have the altitude. Okay, you don't have to find the altitudes. Simply using the length of the three sides, you can find the area precisely. When do we use this Heron's formula? When you have a triangle whose area is to be found, and you know the lengths of the three sides of the triangle, you don't know any of the altitudes. It's not an equilateral triangle. It is a scalene triangle. And you know the lengths of the three sides, but you don't know any altitude. Then how can you use the formula half base into height? You cannot use. So then how do we find the area? So this formula, Heron's formula, helps us to calculate the area of a triangle given the lengths of the three sides. We don't have any knowledge about the altitude, the length of the altitude. We only know the three sides. Then you can use the Heron's formula to find its area. And the Heron's formula is given by root of S into S minus A into S minus B into S minus C, where S is the semi-perimeter of the triangle. S is equal to the sum of the three sides. Okay, where A, B and C. A, B, C represents the three sides of the triangle. A, B and C represent the three sides of the triangle, the lengths of the three sides of the triangle, and S stands for the semi-perimeter. Semi-perimeter. So semi-perimeter meaning add the three sides and divide by 2. Triangle. So here they've called the triangle ABC. The triangle is ABC. The triangle is ABC. The three sides are, they're calling the three sides A, B, and C. Small letter A, B, C. Let them denote the length of the three sides of this triangle. Then the area of the triangle ABC is given by the formula root of S. What is S? It's a semi-perimeter. It's the sum of the three sides divided by 2. When you add the three sides A, B, and C, you get the perimeter. When you add A, B, and C, the lengths of the three sides, when you add, it's the perimeter. It's a perimeter. When you add the length of the three sides, it's a perimeter divided by 2, semi-perimeter, given by the letter small s. So small s is equal to, see, semi-perimeter is half of the perimeter. Semi-perimeter is half of the perimeter. So just perimeter divided by 2. Perimeter, the sum of the three sides divided by 2. Okay, and so this is the formula, root of s into s minus c into s minus b into s minus c. A, B, C are the three sides of the triangle. A, B, and C are the three sides of the triangle. S represents a semi-perimeter, which can be calculated like this. The sum of the three sides divided by 2. So this is very important. The formula is applicable to any triangle. Any triangle. Even for an equilateral triangle, you can use, for an equilateral triangle, don't use the formula root 3 by 4a square. Use this one. You will get exactly the same answer as you would get when you use root 3 by 4a square. So this formula can be used to find the area of any triangle. If you know the lengths of all the three sides, any triangle, you know the lengths of all the three sides. Come on, let's find its area using Heron's formula. Is this fine, children?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, children. So let's get into the exercise. Yeah, do this. I think you can just make a. Okay, I'll just give you time to write this, children. Please write this. It's a new chapter, so let's start with the introduction. Please write on this. Write on this and then answer this question. The name of the chapter is this, Heron's formula. Please write down all this and work this question. I'll just get back in 2 minutes, children. Please write. So here find the area of a triangle whose sides are 13 centimeters, 14 centimeters, and 15 centimeters. So this is a scalene triangle because none of the sides are equal. Scalene triangle. We know the lengths of the three sides and we have to find its area. So this is when we use Heron's formula. So to use the formula, you need to first find the value of the semi-perimeter. 13, 14, 15, A, B, C. 13, 14, 15. So A, B, C. Semi-perimeter is A plus B plus C by 2 or half of A plus B plus C. Both are the same. A plus B plus C by 2 or half of A plus B plus C. So that is a semi-perimeter. 13 plus 14 plus 15 divided by 2, which is 21. So the area is given by the formula root of S into S minus A, S minus B, S minus C. So root of 21 into S is 21 into 21 minus 13. This is the three sides are A, B, and C. A, B, and C. So 21 minus 13, 21 minus 14, 21 minus 15. So on subtracting 21 minus 13, we get 8. This is 7 and this one is 6. Don't multiply the numbers, find their prime factors. 21 can be written as 7 into 3. 21 is 7 into 3. So break down the numbers basically. Break down the numbers into their prime factors. This is 7 into 3 and this is 2 3s. This is 2 cubed. So you will get 2 7s. 7 into 7 is 7 squared. And then you have 2 3s. 3 into 3 is 3 squared. And here 8 2s are 16 and 16 is 4 squared. So in order to get rid of the square root symbol, you need to have, the factors raised to an even power. Like if you have 7 to the power 4, then 7 square will come out of the square root. Supposing you have 2 raised to the power 6, 2 raised to the power 6 under the square root. Under the square root, you have 2 raised to the power 6. So then from 6 2s, 3 2s will come out of the square root. 2 to the power 6 means 6 2s. So 3 2s will come out of the square root. Like that. So what we have done here, so I said don't multiply the numbers, don't multiply. Just break them down and write them with even powers. So this can be written as 7 squared. You can break this also if you want, children. You can write this as 2 into 2 into 2. 2 into 2 into 2. So you'll get 2 to the power 4. That's also fine. 7 into 7, 7 square. 3 into 3, 3 square. If you write 8 as 2 into 2 into 2. So 2 cubed that is. Then the 2 cubed and 2 is 2 to the power 4. You can write 2 to the power 4. So from 2 7s, 1 7 out. From 2 4s, 1 4 out. Or if you had 2 to the power 4, then 2 square will come out, which is again 4. From 3 2s, 1 3 out. And the product is 84. So the area of this triangle is 84 centimeters squared. Please write this. Is it over, children?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So the three numbers given are taken as A, B, and C. The three numbers A, B, C. The three numbers are A, B, and C. A is 13, B is 14, and C is 15. The three sides of the triangle. And first we have to find the semi-perimeter, which is given by A plus B plus C by 2, or half of A plus B plus C, which is 21. Now substitute the values in the formula. Do not multiply 21, 8, 7 and 6 and get a big number. Don't do that. Break down the numbers into their factors. So you can write 21 as 7 into 3. You can write 8 as 2 into 2 into 2. 7 as 7 and 6 as 2 into 3. And then write them in the exponential form. Write each factor in the exponential form, and you know how to get rid of the square root. From 2 sevens, 1 7 comes out. From 2 fours, 1 4 out. And from 2 threes, 1 3 out. And the product is 84, which is the area of the triangle. So simple. The three sides are taken as A, B, and C. Using the three sides, we should find the semi-perimeter. Semi-perimeter, half of the perimeter. So when you add 13, 14 and 15, it is a perimeter. Divide by 2, you will get the semi-perimeter. Do this one, children. What is A? What's the value of A?
8 centimeters.
8. What is B?
8.
Yeah.
11 centimeters.
11. What is C?
32.
X, ma'am.
What is the value of C?
X, ma'am.
X. Or you can put the C itself. C is C. A is 8, B is 11. C is C itself. And what is the perimeter? 32. The perimeter is 32. Then,
Yes.
yeah. Is this correct? 8 plus 11 plus C is equal to 32. When you add the three sides, you will get 32, right? You should get 32. That's what is perimeter. Perimeter is the sum of the three sides. It's not semi-perimeter. It is the perimeter. What is perimeter? The sum of the three sides, the sum of the lengths of the three sides. So 8 plus 11 plus C is equal to 32. So from this you can find the value of C. From this you can find the value of C. So now you know all the three sides. And if the perimeter is 32, what is the semi-perimeter?
16.
Yeah, 16. 32 by 2, 16. You can also add the three sides and divide by 2. You will get the same answer. But since we know the perimeter is 32, the semi-perimeter will be 32 by 2, 16. Okay, that's it. To use the formula, you need the values of A, B, and C and S. We know A and B. Now we found C because 8 plus 11 plus C is equal to 32. Find C, find S, and use the formula. Do it. Tell me the answer. Got it, children?
Going to complete.
Okay. You can have, see, it's not that every number should come out of the square root. Sometimes there can be only 1 5 or only 1 7, which will remain. So if there's only 1 5 or 1 7, it will remain under the square root. For example, if like say 4 comes out of the square root, 5 comes out of the square root, and 7 remains under the square root. So 4 into 5, 20. 20 root 7 is the answer. So not that every number should get, not that you must completely get rid of the square root. Sometimes you may not be able to, then leave the answer as a surd like that. Well, if you complete this, I'm just unsharing my screen. Yeah, what's the answer? Why no response?
8 root 2 into 5 into 3 centimeters square.
Yeah, what is 2 into 5 into 3?
30.
30. So
8 root 30 centimeters square.
that's it. Yeah, 8 root 30 centimeters square. Perfect. Perfect. Yes. The correct answer is 8 root 30. Okay, I was just searching for a file which I just prepared today, but I'm not able to find it. Let me ask you the questions. Okay, so work this for me, children. Just do it behind your book. It's from statistics. Let's see if you can recall. In a frequency distribution, the mid value of a class is 15. We'll continue with Heron's formula in the next class. This is a simple question from statistics. I said in a frequency distribution, the mid value of a class is 15. And the class interval is 4. The class interval is 4, meaning the class size. So like this only, they'll use different terms. So accordingly, you should understand, take the meaning. And the class interval, meaning the class size is 4. In a frequency distribution, the mid value of a class is 15 and the class interval, that is the class size, is 4. The lower limit of the class is dash. The lower limit of the class is dash.
Ma'am, can you repeat the question again?
Oh, I did it so slowly. I said in a frequency distribution, the mid value of a class is 15 and the class interval is 4. The lower limit of the class is dash. The lower limit of the class is dash. The lower limit of the class is dash. Yes.
Is it 13?
13. Huh? Can you explain the procedure? How did you get? Yeah.
I divided the class size by 2, ma'am.
Correct.
And then added 2 to 15, which
Okay.
makes the upper limit. And
Okay.
then if I subtract 2 from 15, it will give me the lower limit.
Perfect, Satvika. Very good. Perfect. Very good. That's what it is. So the mid value, the class mark is given. The mid value meaning the class mark is given to us. The class mark is 15 and the class size is 4. Divide the class size by 2, always by 2. Divide the class size by 2. 4 by 2 is 2. Subtract 2 from 15 to get the lower limit. Add 2 to 15 to get the upper limit of that particular class interval. So 15 is the class mark, right? So 15 is the class mark of the class interval 13 to 17. Because 15 minus 2 is 13. 15 plus 2 is 17. So 15 is the class mark of the class interval 13 to 17. How did we get 13 and 17? The class size is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Class mark 15 minus 2, 13 plus 2, 15 plus 2, 17. So 13 to 17 is a class interval pertaining to the class mark 15. Good, Satvika. Here's the next question for the class. Okay. Similar actually with different numbers. The mid value of a class interval is 42. The mid value. What's the other term for mid value? What's the other term?
Mark.
Class mark. Class mark.
Class mark.
Yeah, the class mark of a class interval is 42. The class mark or the midpoint of the mid value, not midpoint, mid value of a class interval is 42. Okay, and the class size is 10. The class size is 10. Then what is the upper limit? What is the upper limit of this class interval?
47, ma'am.
40?
47, ma'am.
47.
47. Okay. Kanishka was quick to answer that. Anyways, 47. What is the mid value, Kanishka?
42, ma'am.
42 is the mid value. And what's the class size?
10, ma'am.
10. 10 by 2, 5. So to the class mark 42, add 5. Add 5 to get the upper limit, 47. Children, we have done, I think, at least 2 questions like this. This is not new to you. Please practice, which is very important. Now, what do you think tally marks are used to find, children? Why do we make tally marks? To obtain what? To get the... We use tally marks to find what? To find?
Frequency, ma'am.
Frequency. To find frequency. We use the tally marks to find the frequency. What do you call the difference between the highest and the lowest values in the observations?
Range.
Range, ma'am.
Range. Range is the difference between the maximum value and the minimum value in the given set of observations. Range. Range is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value among the values given to you in the set of observations given. Okay. What do you call the number of times a particular item occurs in a given data? What do you call the number of times a particular item occurs in a given data? What do you call it?
Mode, ma'am.
Mode.
No. Yeah, frequency. Sanghamitra's right. Frequency. See, mode is the value that repeats. The value that repeats maximum number of times is mode. This one is, what do you call the number of times? The number of times a particular item occurs in a data, not the maximum number of times. The number of times a particular item occurs in a given data. Now, if I say 5 happens 7 times, what do you call that 7? 5 happens in a particular data, 5 happens 7 times. What do you call 7? 5 is the observation and 7 is called the frequency. If 5 happens, if this value 5 occurs 7 times in a set of observations, if this number 5 happens 7 times, then 5 is the observation, is one of the observations, and 7 is the frequency. So the number of times a particular item occurs in a given data is called its frequency. All right, children, more MCQs. I was not able to find that file. So we'll see more MCQs on mean, median, and mode in the next session. So that's it for today's class, children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, children. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, children. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good night.